Also this morning, the ordeal is over for 3 Cleveland women who spent 11 years in Ariel Castro's prison. Now it's his turn to spend the rest of his life behind bars. Michele Knight bravely faced him in court. She stands just 4 feet 7 inches, but her tiny stature could not disguise her immense strength.
I spent 11 years in hell. Now your hell is just beginning. I will overcome all this that happened, but you will face hell for eternity. From this moment on, I will not let you define me.
The 2 other victims, Amanda Berry and Gina DeJesus, sent family members to convey their emotions. The man who raped and tortured them claimed that until they led him away, that he is not a monster. He rambled for 16 minutes in court about a harmonious home and 3 women who he said wanted to be with him.
Most of the sex that went on in the house, and probably all of it, was consensual. These allegations about being forceful on them, that is totally wrong. Because there was times that they would even ask me for sex, many times. And I learned that these girls were not virgins from their testimony to me. They had multiple partners before me, all 3 of them.
Well, he didn't mention the 99 feet of chains police found in that house used to keep the women from escaping, or the portable toilets he made them use that he rarely emptied, or how he made them wear a helmet when he raped them and forced them to play Russian roulette. I want to bring in Dawn Hughes, clinical and forensic psychologist. Lori Burns works with troubled teens and is an advocate for victims of abuse. Mark Klaas is the founder of the Klaas Kids Foundation, a group he formed after the kidnap and murder of his daughter. Thanks to all of you for being here this morning.
Thank you.
Mark, let me start with you. When we saw Ariel Castro, and I thought he was leering at Michele Knight when she walked in, and then she's in the room and he's going off on this rant. You're one of the few people who have been in a situation like this. You were in court when your daughter's killer was being sentenced, and he started to say horrible things. Honestly, it looked like you were going to go after him. Did that all come back yesterday?
Yes, absolutely. It just dragged me back to that moment about 17 years ago when I did sit in a courtroom and listen to another pervert try to excuse and justify the heinous crimes that he committed against an innocent victim. And indeed, I did get up and make a move for him because I thought he was trying to basically ruin my family. And at that point, the judge kicked me out of the courtroom. And I think it's illustrative that yesterday, when Castro turned to look at Michele Knight, he should have been silenced and stopped at that moment. He never should have had the right to speak, let alone to turn and try to stare down that young woman.
And then he rambled on for 16 minutes. Here's a part of it.
I just hope they can find it in their hearts to forgive me. Because we had a lot of harmony going on in that home. And if you've seen the YouTube video of Amanda this weekend, that right there itself proves that that girl did not go through no torture. That woman did not go through no torture. Because if that was true, do you think she will be out there partying already or having fun? I don't think so.
Dawn, more than a few people were very upset that he was allowed to continue to speak for that long a period of time, saying things like the sex was consensual, at times they wanted it. I admit I was thinking, even though I know what the rules of the court are, Dawn, why can't they shut this guy up? What did you take away from what you heard yesterday?
Well, what we hear is this typical sociopathy, sexual predator behavior where they continually deflect responsibility for their own behavior. They engage in denial and minimization and blaming the victim. And you see his distorted thinking. He's so inconsistent, saying, I'm not a violent person, and yet he tortured them. The sex was consensual, and yet he raped them. This is typical sexual predator deflecting responsibility for their behavior.
It looked, Lori, to me like the other girls' family members may have left the courtroom when he spoke, but Michele Knight stayed. And I thought, How does she have the ability to do that? Why would she even want to listen to what he had to say? But is this part of her healing process?
Yes, I believe so. I am tremendously inspired by Michele Knight and her strength. I think she will be a tremendous advocate for other children that have been abused, and I am just so inspired by this young woman who has just walked out of this situation and has all of this power and courage to walk into this courtroom and face this man one-on-one.
And determination to help other people who have gone through terrible things like she has. And how important is it when you're trying to help people to be someone who has been there and understands?
Right. They say the darker the path you walked out of, the greater your capacity to help others. And I think Michele Knight is right there.
Mark, I want to talk about Michele Knight. All of these women. I know the Class Kids Foundation has given her a grant. It was heartbreaking to hear how alone she said she felt, that she didn't have a place to go home to. Tell us about that foundation and what you've done for her.
Well, yes. Earlier this year, we started a fund called the Class Family Housing Fund, and it was specifically started to assist families of missing persons with their housing costs based on the premise, the very real premise, that when your child is kidnapped, everything else can fall by the wayside and you can find yourself nearing financial ruin within just a couple of months. This was started by a real estate professional in my area who wanted to be able to help people specifically with housing needs. And when we started to hear about Michele's story, which still is unfolding, we realized that she was alone, that she didn't want any contact with her family for whatever reason, and thought that she would be a perfect recipient. So we sent her a $6,000 grant to assist specifically with her housing costs.
Not $6,000, was it?
Oh,
It was more than that, right?
Sure. Oh no, absolutely. It was an honor to be able to present this remarkable young woman with this small gift.
Well, I want to play another clip of Michele again talking specifically about Ariel Castro.
As you think about the 11 years and atrocities you could inflicted on us, what does God think of you hypocritically going to church every Sunday, coming home to torture us? The death penalty will be so much easier. You don't deserve that. You deserve to spend life in prison. I can forgive you, but I'll never forget. With the guidance of God, I will prevail and help others that suffered at the hands of others.
Lori, we talk about how inspirational she was. I was absolutely just stunned by what she had to say and so deeply moved by it. Having said that, based on your experience, what does she have to face and what kind of help is she going to need?
All of these girls are going to need intense therapy. They're going to have suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. They're going to have triggers in regards to smells, sounds, and of course temperature, being in the basement and then again in the attic, which is so hot. So I think intense therapy, but also, as Michele said in her statement, I'm looking forward to my brand new life. I think it's got to be a parallel path of starting their brand new life and just igniting all of their dreams, as well as an intensive path of therapy to start over again.
And Donna,
yeah, go ahead.
Of all the many stomach churning moments I think that there were, as we heard Ariel Castro, when he talked about the 6-year-old daughter and how he gave her as normal a life as he could and suggested, Dawn, that it was a loving home. I want to talk about this young girl because, well, I mean, Ariel Castro is the father, the only father that she has ever known, and Amanda Berry, part of the reason we learned that she wasn't there is she wants time to be with her daughter. She wants to be able to tell her daughter in her own way, in her own time, how this all unfolded. What about that little girl?
Well, she was born into the world under very tragic circumstances. She probably witnessed a lot of violence and trauma and emotional and psychological abuse, not only of her mother, but the other women in the house as well. So she has a high degree of exposure to an extreme traumatic stressor. She is going to need also therapy and counseling and probably family therapy for the two of them to sort of reconcile this past. And this little girl is going to have to grow up learning about her father, and that's going to be a very difficult path for her to walk.
Dawn Hughes, Mark Klaus, Lori Burns, thanks to all of you.